mission is much more difficult, human to human, even if this is that form, but it is scary stuff. Our poll question up on X this morning at the Pulse of an H has to do with that virus. Are you worried about it? Just a general, are you worried about it? It's pretty tough because the news in the morning is pretty scary, but despite the number of people, including in Nebraska now, I guess 17, how many, including the British U.S. resident or citizen and the other folks falling there for quarantine, I guess it's going to be 40 plus days. I think they're handling it pretty well. I think there is enough other things to worry about this morning. I don't know what it is, by the way. And let me start with the basics. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning up into Maine. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Jack, Heath, J-Dog on the boards to all the moms out there. All the moms. I hope you had a nice Mother's Day yesterday. And it was always a very important thing. And I appreciate our time of year and day to think of moms. Hope you had a good one. J-Dog, we got a packed show for you, but we got a great guest to kick off the show. We have a packed show, by the way. 10 o'clock hour is full, 11 o'clock hour, so buckle up 9 to noon. 98.1 FM, 98.7 FM HD2, Seacoast to New Hampshire, Seacoast to Maine, 1270 AM, 107.7 FM, 107.3 FM, 98.3 FM, Lakes region. Of course, we have you covered worldwide. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Okay, so I don't know why the president and his team thought we could negotiate with terrorists. I thought we learned that lesson a long time ago, but here we go again. President rejecting, as he should, what the Iranian response was, including things like us paying them for war damage, recognizing their sovereignty, not touching the uranium. Not happening. So where are we at? Is it square one? What will happen next? Is the president's trip to China still on tomorrow? But I want to bring in Tim Hafner, who's been a tremendous local expert on the military side since we started having Tim on in the early days of the bombing in Iran. And Tim's a retired fighter pilot. He lives in the Durham, New Hampshire area, and just a great mind on this. And I wish ABC, NBC, Fox, CNN would interview him or interviewed him a month ago, because Tim, everything you said 4 to 6 weeks ago, you were correct. I'm not saying you need to hear that, but you were correct. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Well, now I have stress because I think you're going to call CBS or ABC.
No, you said things that I've shared with friends and our listeners on the air. We're delighted and grateful to have you on as an expert locally. You're a fighter pilot. You know these things. You're pretty smart. You flew commercially for a lot of years, but you said they're dug in. They've been watching us. They're decentralized. They're going to be tough to get. We can take 90% of their stuff out and 10% can still do a lot of damage. It's hard to win a war from the air. These things usually take longer than people thought. Everything you said was true.
Yeah. I know, the other thing I've been thinking about this is we got to remember it's a fight to the death, at least from their standpoint. That I'm convinced that's the leadership there is looking at this. It's an existential fight. So if you're fighting for your life, when do you give up?
Yeah.
You don't, right?
So I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just content to sit back and watch. If you look at Trump's track record, his first term, his second term, in terms of when he says he's going to do something, and then he does it. I think one of the things we're not used to seeing is an administration that is so results oriented. It's not that I don't think they're ignoring the polls, but I don't think they're losing sight of the objectives, and they're just pushing a lot harder than we're used to seeing politically to get the objective they're looking for.
That's a very profound observation, because I'm sitting here getting frustrated looking at the cost of this thing. They're looking through it. But Tim, I'm going to go back to, I just, as a civilian studying this stuff, probably since college and as a civilian at the War College of the National Security Seminar, we have these layers of really smart analysts in the NSA, CIA, probably Joint Chiefs, support staff. And what we had to know what you just said, that no matter what we do, there's going to be a core, whether it's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the military, the hardliners, they're going to want to fight to the death. They're not going to want to, they're never going to agree to anything. They're not going to negotiate. So why did we Why does the president say, looks like we're going to get a good agreement? We're getting a framework for an agreement. Looks like next week or 2 weeks from now, we're going to get an agreement. They want to end this thing. They want to end this thing. We had to know going in that they didn't want to end this. So why do we fall into that trap that, they're going to want to agree? We're sending people to Pakistan. They're going to want to agree. They're not going to agree to anything. They're stringing us along.
No, and I'm convinced that they know that. I heard this great saying about Trump: take him seriously, but don't take him literally. Because he's right. He's not a politician. He's a businessman. So everything that comes out of his mouth, I'm convinced, is a negotiating stance, probably more than a political stance, which I think throws people off as well. So they hear him say things, they take it literally, and all he's doing is maneuvering to get to an end game and trying to keep the other side off balance.
Could be.
So, yeah, I'm not put off by that. It's kind of fun to watch. But of course, saying this is somebody whose hero days are way behind him.
Yeah.
As I can just sit and observe.
Tim Hafner, retired U.S. Air Force fighter pilot. Tim, I want to go back, though, to what could happen. The president's supposed to go to China tomorrow. Our own White House correspondent, John Decker, telling us that last week. This was the trip that was put off, but the stakes are higher than ever. Apparently, the trip's still on, although I haven't heard today, because tensions are pretty tight right now. And China relies on their oil from the Strait of Hormuz, from the Iranian exporting and drilling. And the Iranian Islamic State relies on their money to pay for that. They're the biggest customer. So China could have a big lever here. How does this thing, it feels like with the games that the Iranian negotiators or powers to be are playing, that we're going to resume to, pretty serious bombing on strategic targets. Do you feel that's imminent or not?
I think it is. I think you have to, because they're not, historically, everything that comes out of Iran's mouth from a negotiating standpoint is not true. It's just that, right? Oh, we don't have long-range missiles, and then they shoot a missile that could have hit Britain if they had aimed in that direction. So they know that going in. The whole thing with China in some ways is really on the ropes, because their economy is in very tough shape. And one of the ways they've been able to string it along is the cheap oil they were getting from Venezuela and Iran. Well, that flow is choked off now. So the squeeze for China is really significant right now. So it seems to me the U.S. is actually in a pretty good bargaining stance. Plus, the whole idea of they've said they want Taiwan, 2027 was the target date. And they've been looking at the capabilities of the U.S. going, okay, that's more significant than we thought. Or I just think they're having to rewrite their war plans significantly based on what they're seeing our capabilities are.
Okay, the one big thing I don't know how much uranium they have. I don't know where it is. I have to believe the Israeli intelligence has a pretty good idea. I'd love Israel to go take care of it for us. I think we've done enough for them, but they probably won't. Can we secure this uranium? Is it going to require boots in the ground?
I don't know if you heard the comment that Trump made. It might have even been this morning. He talked about Space Force has been watching the site where the uranium is. So that, at least what he's saying publicly, is we know exactly where it is.
Well, let's take it. Let's just get it. That's going to just get it. You take that equation off the table. Do that tomorrow.
Yeah, boy, logistically, that's a long way to go through hostile territory. Look at what it took to pull one guy out. And to go in and get
so you're the fighter pilot. Is that something we cannot do from the air? Because someone asked me this. They go, Jack, if it's non-enriched, it's just uranium, and we did that bombing last June in the mountainous region, and those two holes in the ground where they were enriching, we dropped a lot of bombs in there. And someone asked me, are we worried that if we bomb the uranium, it's like a nuclear bomb going off? And I go, I don't know the answer to that.
No, I think it would be maybe a dirty bomb. My understanding is it's been enriched to 60%, which you need I think in the 90s to actually get a workable warhead. But getting it to 60 is the challenging part. It can go very quickly from 60 to 90. So, that's a great question. I don't know how big of a threat that would be, but my guess is it's deep enough that they could just bury it even more significantly than it is now, and then you just watch it and see. But just to transport it out of there, man, I don't know. You can't do it by air. And if you do, like, where do you land the aircraft? You still got to dig it out. You got to move it out. You need excavation equipment.
Sounds like a good exercise for some of our stealth B-2 bombers is keep dropping those bunker busters over and over again until it just goes deeper. Anyway, Tim, do you feel, you said to me once on the show, Tim Hafner, retired fighter pilot, military expert for Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H, and should be doing this nationally because you've been more right than any of the national analysts. But Tim, do you feel, you said to me also on one of the shows, you said, Jack, I haven't seen a lot of wars that were over in 4 or 6 weeks. Usually these things in history take longer. Do you think this is one of those protracted, prolonged situations? Or do you think, even though the president's a deal maker and a business person, we want to get out of this thing as soon as possible?
The sense that I get is that they're about to turn the volume up to 11 or 12 on and taking out a lot of the stuff that we still haven't hit yet.
Yeah.
And I don't, man, if I had to guess, I'd say we're in it for another month, maybe 2, but I got the same sources you do. So.
Yeah. Well, you've been awesome. Thank you, Tim, for your service as well. Tim Hafner, Durham, New Hampshire, retired fighter pilot. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jack.
Wow. Very fat. He's been more on the money than these national interviews you see each week where they're just throwing darts. They don't even know. And he's been correct on everything he's been saying, and pretty fascinating. Of course, we have a great resource here locally with the Pease Refueling Wing, the Air National Guard there, the shipyard. We got a lot of retired, great military commanders, captains, chiefs, you name it. This virus, J-Dog, we asked about in our poll question. It is very unnerving, but all the world and national health groups and experts, yes, there are a bunch of, there are a lot of cases and concerns. 17 Americans now are in Omaha, Nebraska, quarantined. The French person, there's one person from France who's been, after this, the cruise ship, got into that Spanish island, has been moved to France, but is showing serious symptoms. The problem with the virus is if you get it, it's very lethal. The death rate is much higher, 30, 38, 35%, unlike other viruses. But the good news is, so you don't have to, with everything else, like on a Monday morning, as if there's not enough to get you stressed out, as if there's not enough to worry about. Contracting this, even human to human, is not like a flu or a cold virus. It's where someone can cough and you can, it's easy. You walk by someone in the supermarket and you can get like a virus or a cold. It's not like that. It's very intimate on transmission. And you just look at this historically, the numbers. So it seems to be one of these situations from the ship, and they're going to see, try and quarantine and treat as many of the people who get symptomatic as possible, but it seems to be a very small amount. I mean, you're talking a pretty big world, and since all this happened, 3 people from this cruise ship have passed, so it's a small thing, but on the news, it's a big thing. Hey, Alexa, Google Play the Pulse of an H. We'll come back. Dean Spilio of Southern New Hampshire University next.
It's J-Dog of the Playback, and we had
Good Morning New Hampshire, live from the New England College Studios, home to a new media center where the next generation of journalists are taught to do it right. Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, we are back on this Monday morning, and Dean Spiliotis, Southern New Hampshire University, one of our great political analysts and all-stars, political scientists there on the academic political side and his history side, really. Dean, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jack.
Well, Dean, I don't know if you just heard, we just had a really great military expert locally, a retired fighter pilot, Tim Hafner from Durham, and he's been spot on every time he's been on, telling us where we're at with the war in Iran, what's going to happen next. He was right 4 to 5, 6 weeks ago. He thinks we're pretty much going to turn up the heat shortly to 12 or beyond and hit the targets we haven't hit yet. Because you can't negotiate with terrorists. He says they're gonna fight to the end. He thinks we know that. We're just sort of playing a game ourselves here. But he says that's what it feels like. He doesn't know. He's heard the uranium through his own circles is probably 60% enriched. It's deep down. We know where it is. I guess the president referenced that this morning. We're monitoring it with space satellites. We know where it is. I don't know if we can just bomb it or not, but that's where it seems to stand. And the president's set to go to China tomorrow. They buy their number one oil source is that Strait of Hormuz Iranian oil. A lot of money to the Islamic State. Other than that, I have no idea where this thing's going, Dean, and I hope someone does.
Yeah, I don't either, unfortunately, but I can give you my best educated guess. The president's in a very difficult position right now. If nothing changes, he's basically at risk of coming. If he were to walk away from this and claim victory, he'd basically be walking away possibly with a deal that isn't even as good as the JCPOA that was negotiated by Obama, from which President Trump withdrew us from that agreement, because it's becoming increasingly clear that Iran is going to try to maintain at least some type of control over the Strait of Hormuz. They don't seem eager to permanently give up the possibility of enriching uranium. Maybe they'll do 10 years or 15 years. But that's basically what we had under the Obama agreement. So if, as your veteran said, they're going to turn up the heat to 12, I don't have a sense of whether or not you can bomb them into submission at this point. We've had tremendous tactical success already from the military. The problem is just that we're in a very difficult spot strategically, and it's sort of the policy and the strategy that ultimately is key, even if you're able to kind of have this tremendous military success. So it seems pretty clear that Iran believes, true or not, Iran believes they're in a good strategic position. They're, as you said, not in any rush to wrap this up. We know the regime doesn't really care about the kind of average Iranian, so they don't have the same demands on them politically that we do in this country. So there's just a lot of stuff up in the air right now.
I have to believe the NSA, the CIA, the Joint Chiefs, we all knew what the Islamic State was and who they are. I don't know why the president keeps putting out in 2 weeks or another week, or they want a deal. We're going to get an agreement this week, when I'm sure the analyst said these are terrorists. They're not going to ever agree. And when they say they are, you can't believe them. You cannot believe them. So as Tim Hafner, the fighter pilot, said, the way we were trained back then, fighting a lot of the terrorism in the Middle East, is that, they're going to fight to the death. And that's why you didn't ever want to get captured as a fighter pilot. They're going to fight to the death, because they don't view the world the same way they do. I mean, we do. They're in it for, a real war here, and they've been wanting to destroy us for a lot of years. So why do we think they're going to agree to anything we propose?
Right. Well, and that's the issue. I mean, there's a lot of reporting now that suggests that going into this, before President Trump greenlit it, he was told by General Kane, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and other, as you mentioned, analysts and experts who know that a lot of these types of behaviors by Iran were likely. And President Trump believed that, well, I think in part he was kind of having seen the previous success with the bombing the year before, and also with the success in Venezuela. Ultimately, it was his call. He believed, I think he thought genuinely that this was going to be quick, that we would decapitate the regime with Israel, and they would pretty much cave, and that just has not happened. So I think we knew that. You're right. We knew this all along, but it's ultimately President Trump's call. And for whatever reason, he believed that was not likely to happen, but now it has.
I think probably I mean, it's a whole different world, but I think Vladimir Putin thought the war with Ukraine would only take a few months.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look at the way that is starting to slowly shift now.
Yeah, yeah. How's this affecting local politics? And I mean that sincerely, Dean Spiliotis. I mean, the local races, the independent voters here looking at the fall and the midterms. How's this, what's going on in the Middle East, the gas, the oil prices, the uncertainty? How does this affect the local political scene? Does it freeze the field, or are things going to heat up regardless? What?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I was just having a conversation with someone about Governor Ayotte and how this was or was not affecting her potential for reelection. You know, a lot of the conditions are lining up for a big Democratic midterm. It's not unusual for the incumbent party in charge to suffer losses, but these could be pretty big, even with some of the redistricting losses that Democrats have suffered recently. But, you know, traditionally the New Hampshire governorship has been this kind of slightly separate thing that, you know, people are willing to cross over and split tickets, and you typically run a little left of center, right of center. And it's interesting to think about whether or not, you know, Governor Ayotte, she's doing okay, but her approval's not on the level of a Chris Sununu or a John Lynch. And so, you know, I think she is somewhat susceptible. And she's also having some issues within her own party, kind of figuring out how to negotiate the different wings of her party. So, you know, I think she still has an opportunity to win, but I think these larger features out there in politics right now are going to make it a lot more challenging for her. Typically, other than Craig Benson in the early 2000s, typically New Hampshire governors get a second term because they've only been in 2 years. But I think a lot of this broader stuff is gonna possibly leak into local politics.
Yeah, I I think there's a chance, but again, the good news for Democrats looking for a big blue wave here in New Hampshire in the fall is everything you just said. You know, the fatigue factor, the economy, the cost of things, they're going to clearly run on affordability or lack of it. Anti-Trump type feeling within independent voters and Democrats. Democrats are energized. The good news is the Democrats have that going for them. The bad news is, you know, it's May 11th and you have June, July, August, September. It's a later primary. So that's not that far away for big races like the U.S. Senate. But, you know, again, if things, you know, if China weighs in, and these are all big ifs now that I'd place less than 40%. If this thing can turn, we get the uranium, we can beat up the hardliners in Tehran, and we feel good about it, and we focus on things at home and the world's safer place, it's not as bleak. But for Republicans or independents or you know, people that don't want, you know, a change at the State House, I asked one of my guests on Friday, Dean, if hypothetically, and it's a big hypothetical right now because we've seen this tendency to vote Democrat in the federal races and then Republican governor and Republican majority in the State House by voters, they cross over. Independents will vote this way and come back and vote Republican. I mean, 4 terms of Chris Sununu. The executive council is currently Republican. The state Senate's clearly a Republican. The House is tight. I asked one of our guests on Friday, if the Democrats, hypothetically, if there's a tremendous blue wave, like more than 10 or 12 feet, if you will, like an ocean wave, and the Democrats won big and conquered, how quickly would they propose an income tax? He said, within the first 30 or 40 days. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. All right. I appreciate it, Dean.
Sure thing, Jack. Thanks.
Dean Spiliotis, Southern New Hampshire University. All right. We're going to update you on some of the other news as we begin this Monday. And thank you for joining us. Not tomorrow, but Wednesday, we'll be in the throes of our 12-hour Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count, part of Easter Seals. So a lot of people will be in our main headquarters in Concord. We'll be well underway. We start at 6 a.m. Mike Pomp will get things going. I'm going to anchor most of the day. And then J-Dog will be with me. Our friends from Easter Seals and Veterans Count. It's my 12th annual Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count. You can check out vetscount.org. You can donate early, but this is the day after tomorrow. Governor Kelly Ayotte will kick off the day, Make 12 Hours Count, Veterans Count Day in New Hampshire. And this year, it's critically important because we have so many military and military families either serving right now because of what's going on in the world, on extra duty, on fumes. We have veterans who have just come out. We have less than 1 people who serve such a very entitled 41 million Americans, less than 1% served. We have veterans who have served over and over multiple times. And as we talked about last week with many of our guests, they're still not being taken care of here at home. And we have a deal to do that, an obligation to do it. And we're going to talk Wednesday about the areas we're not doing a great job on, how you can help the care coordinators and Veterans Count. And I got to tell you, a $100 donation, $200 makes a huge difference to a veteran and his or her family. The care coordinators are amazing with Easter Seals. This is a locally run and operated nonprofit. It's not out of state. It's not one of these nonprofits where you hear a story that they were taking some of the money and taking trips to Hawaii. This is a well-administrated, right out of Manchester, New Hampshire, Easter Seals, but Veterans Count, the care coordinator. It's my 12th annual. So join us this Wednesday. Make 12 hours count for our veterans and Veterans Count, vetscount.org. A lot of veterans and their families are doing more than ever right now. We are asking a lot of our military right now, an awful lot of our military. And here's a simple way you can say thank you for your service. Wednesday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 12 hours. So my 12th annual Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count, been able to raise more than $1.2 million over the years for Veterans Count and the care coordinators. Join us this Wednesday. Jack, Heath, J-Dog, and the board's back in a moment.
107. Now, back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, a reminder, if you want to watch on YouTube, we are streaming live at the Pulse of an H and our poll question. up on X at the Pulse of an H this morning. Are you worried about this hantavirus, this rodent, human to human now, the Andes version? Are you worried? Of course you're worried because it's scary, right? I mean, whenever you see a bunch of news in the morning, when you wake up and it's about 17 people now in Omaha, Nebraska, who've been quarantined and, sprayed with disinfectant and, pretty scary stuff. And it's the cruise ship that, eventually would dock on the Spanish island, and you see images of people in all the outfits and they're disinfecting the passengers. It is a very scary, lethal virus, but it is much more difficult to contract human to human than some of the other viruses that we've been having to deal with. So, in the grand scheme of things, I think if you're being smart and local, I think I'm not saying you're flying to Omaha, Nebraska today, but even in Nebraska, I'm sure the quarantining is very serious. I've heard that some of these 17 folks that are now in Nebraska will be basically in a quarantine, setting, sterile setting for about 40 some days to make sure that they are symptomatic free. It is scary. It is. And I get it, but we're not seeing, the fears being stoked by like this can, spread like wildfire. It's not one of those situations, but I'm not a epidemiologist. We've had a few of those in the past, and I'm not a doctor on my own radio show, but I understand the fear and concerns when you wake up to the news. We're going to hear from Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors, in a moment. It's amazing with the situation with the war in Iran that how the markets, there was a better than expected jobs report Friday, how the markets, even with the higher gas and oil prices and the uncertainty, the markets are looking through this and beyond already. I don't know how they do it. I'm talking like our U.S. economic markets. Like, isn't it weird? You see these stories when the news is bleak, and then you hear that, Dow Jones Industrial, the NASDAQ, had a record day. And you're like, I just went to the gas station and it cost me more than $55 to put gas in my rig. How can it be a record day? Or how about restaurants? Oh my goodness. And I'm hearing it, obviously it's a direct consequence of the higher fuel prices because of trucking and shipping and air flights. But it just seems that everything is so damn expensive right now. Go out for, I don't know, I won't bring up Mother's Day because it's priceless. Ha ha ha. Did I score points with that? It's priceless. You can't put a price on Mother's Day. But go out to dinner and, good luck. Even getting an appetizer and, a cold beverage and a tip with a couple. It's tough to get out, under $100 a dinner, closer to 200 with the 20% gratuity than unless you're Canadian. That's another one I slipped in there. Haha. It's tough to get out under 180, $200 for a couple to go out to dinner. Grocery shopping, same deal. Everything's expensive. But yep, uncertainty. We've rejected the Iranian terrorist responses. What did we think? That all of a sudden that you're going to be able to negotiate with terrorists? They're going to agree to what you want? Of course they're not. So President going to China tomorrow. Is that we're going to find out from our news contributors this morning if the trip's still on. It's a critical time because China may be the one economic and superpower in the world that can tell the terrorist in the Islamic State to agree to this, or else they're not going to get their money from China because China needs their oil through the Strait of Hormuz, and we need to secure the uranium. It's that simple, but it's complicated. But China, the president, if the trip is still on, John Decker, our White House correspondent, told us the president was going to leave tomorrow for this big meeting that was postponed because of the war in Iran with the leaders in Beijing, and it's a big time. The timing is critical. So we're going to learn more. But we had Tim Hafner, military expert, retired fighter pilot, on the show this morning, and he's been spot on. He was in Durham, New Hampshire, and he feels that it feels rather imminent that we're going to turn up the heat on the hardliners in Iran to about 12 and bomb and take out missiles, take out some of the targets that are left, hit them harder than they expect. And I don't know about the uranium. Apparently the president may have referenced this morning. We know where it is. I asked Tim, the retired fighter pilot, can we deal with that by air, even if it's deep underground? He's not sure. And the uranium has been 60% enriched, he's heard. So we'll see where it all goes, but he's been right about everything he's been saying. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. It's Monday. We're 11 days into May, 9:44 a.m. You're listening to Good Morning New Hampshire, the pulse of an H across our network of AM and FM stations, plus worldwide. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the pulse of an H. Coming up, I want to save some time for Doug Tangden on the economic front and how the markets are able to look through these perfect storms. Back in a moment.
This is the Pulse. Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse
I'll
of
work
New
it out with
Hampshire.
All right, we are back. And, you know, we talk a lot about the economy, and I'm trying to figure out. I just said Doug Tangden, World Market Advisors. It's kind of baffling right now, and I mean this sincerely, Doug. Good morning, by the way. Hope you had a nice Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah, great Mother's Day.
Okay, so all I'm trying to do on my show since I've started this almost, 20 years ago, thank God, or a blessing. I just try and I did this when I was in the TV world. I just try and articulate and communicate what I think most people around me are experiencing and living and feeling. And right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm seeing little indicators. We have more time with you this morning. I want to come back to, but on the big news of the day, like the war with Iran, president rejecting the crazy Iranian response, which I don't know why we thought we could negotiate with terrorists. Good jobs report on Friday. It's like the market's looking through this perfect storm. I mean, but yet average people go to fill up their rig at the gas station today after a Mother's Day weekend or a busy weekend, and they're putting $50, $65 into their vehicle. Diesel's $5.80 a gallon, and they go out to a restaurant and everything seems $50 more. I'm just telling you because I went to 2 restaurants this weekend and I'm like, holy mackerel! When the bill came, and I'm the one picking it up because it's either Mother's Day or something, and I'm like, wow, Mother's Day is priceless. Mother's Day is priceless, but you know what I'm saying? Go out to dinner anywhere, lunch, and I'm like, grocery shopping, everything's expensive, and yet, oh, markets are up this morning, and everyone's like, huh? What? You know what I mean? There's almost 2 different worlds going on.
Yep, markets are at record highs. And the reason the market is at record highs is it earned its way there. It's not just an issue of vibes and sentiment. Earnings are up 25% year over year. Sales are up 10% year over year. That was way more than anybody expected. And this is not, just a one company or another. This is Microsoft was up 25% year over year. Apple was up 25% year over year. So people are spending money on iPhones. They're spending money. Companies are spending money on enterprise compute. People are spending money, and the economy is growing as a result. That's why we had 115,000 jobs last month. That's why the unemployment rate remains steady and it's not ticking up. And that's why the market seems to defy these consumer angst.
Yeah, but again, most people they're driving around working and they're going, I don't understand how the overall economy, if it's that bigger and more resilient, because I'm starting to see, okay, this is what I'm starting to see locally, and I may be looking at barometers that don't matter. I'm just telling you what I see, Doug. So I don't know about where you live because you're in the Upper Valley. It's a whole different world, and I don't mean that to be sarcastic. Hanover, New Hampshire is like in a different solar or universe system. Speaking of UFOs, no, I'm kidding. It's insulated. It's got its own economy. It's got a huge medical facility. It's got high tech. It's got manufacturing. Upper Valley is in another world. It really is in its own economy. It's got an Ivy League college perched up there that you attended. It's just, no offense, it's always been its own area, Hanover. So my question is, locally, which would be the southern tier, maybe south of the Lakes region, greater Manchester over to the seacoast, Rockingham County, Hillsborough. There's a lot of houses that come on the market right now and open houses. And I always look at real estate as a barometer because most people, their home is their number one investment. So a lot of properties are popping on the market. And I'm hearing from real estate friends who've been doing this for 20 or 30 years. Ironically, the higher end, now I'm going to define that, Doug, as up near $2 million and over, ironically, is things are moving. But the sort of $600,000 to $700,000 to $1.5 million is slow. It's slowing down. And I can't explain why that is. Number 2, I bumped into 2 very talented people right now who were laid off from sort of high-tech sales jobs. And doesn't matter the company, salespeople that generate revenue. Younger, but, still they need to work. They need to bite into another full-time job. They're interviewing. And they're like, this is tough on the ego. We're not getting a guy and a gal friend of mine. They're like, not getting a lot of offers for new jobs. I go, really, right now? And you're on the sales side. I would think that companies would be looking for like a good sales manager right now. And they go, no, we've applied, and we're getting a lot of like, no, we're full right now. So those are indicators. I can't figure out what's happening.
I think AI has something to do with this, Jack. I think the revolution in corporate IT systems is real. And so as a result, companies are looking for, they're making AI an excuse for changing their workforce. They're saying, yeah, we were laying off because of AI. But there's also an element of they're trying to figure this out. There's an implementation issue. And to implement AI, they need to have some space. And so they're using these chatbots, they're using these LLMs, they're using agents and figuring out how can we implement this in order to save on headcount. That's I think part of it. The other part you actually mentioned, a big portion of this economy that's growing is in high tech, and it is in healthcare. And yes, the Upper Valley is unique because it's got Dartmouth Health anchoring the economy. But I was actually, ironically, I was in Walmart at Claremont this morning, getting tires for my truck, and even at 7 a.m, there's a really a lot of people out scouring for prices. And so I think this, you talk about a K-shaped economy. I don't think that the lower end of the K is that bad off, at least, in at Walmart in Claremont. I think people are actually, they've got money from whatever reason, and they're able to spend it.
Please don't say from COVID, because I'll throw up. Please don't say they still have money from COVID and they're spending it at Walmart, or I will throw up live on the air.
No. I think there are strategic businesses that are starting up, and you'll see this in the numbers. The number of startups over the last year is like a record. People are actually starting up companies rather than looking for a position, and it's never been easier to start up a company.
Well, you know what? I have one for you that I talked about with a buddy of mine this morning. So I've been reading a lot about AI, and I've had a few experts on my show, a few authors about AI, and I've known and watched what it's been doing, especially with software development. It's been eating up that world, and a lot of these layoffs were people that have very secure high-tech jobs. It used to be 5-10 years ago, if you were a software developer, you could write your ticket. How many times did you hear that?
Yeah, remember Learn to Code?
Yep.
Learn to Code?
Yep.
Yeah.
So guess what? The AI expert I had on, he says, you're better off becoming a carpenter or a plumber than a software developer with AI. Okay, big warning. But you look at Elon Musk, Mr. He's got he's kind of got his own marketing guy when he looks at all the Tesla BS. But you look at SpaceX, and you read about his IPO that's coming up later in June this summer, and how it's going to be the biggest IPO in history, they're saying. And SpaceX, I read, they make their money. The least amount of money they make with the company right now is their space launch. Their biggest money producer is Starlink, the satellite. But what Musk wants to do is introduce AI to his space network, to be having data centers in space to produce electricity for our energy needs on Earth. And that's pretty far out there, but they're calling it, they're saying it will be the biggest IPO in history. Do you buy all that?
I think Musk is a great marketer. He was marketing. Remember the sonotube thing that we were going to drive, and our cars were going to go into a sonotube and go 600 miles an hour or something like that. He throws these ideas out there. And great. I love the idea, the fact that he's throwing ideas out there. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Data centers in space, creating energy to beam down to Earth, has been a science fiction theme.
Right. Well, remember the James Bond movies, the satellite and the beam of energy shooting down to the facility in Hawaii, blowing up.
Moonraker.
Yeah, amazing.
Moonraker. Yeah.
But movies come true, Doug.
Eventually. Proof of the pudding is in the eating. I'm not gonna hang my hat on what Elon Musk says. I'm gonna hang my hat on what Tesla delivers in terms of its earnings.
Yeah, I know.
At the end of the day,
yeah.
What's driving the market higher, Jack, is earnings.
Yeah. All right, we got to run.
Earnings lead the economy.
Thank you. Doug Tengler, World Market Advisors. We come back. Anna Brown, Citizens Count, an update on a busy week at the State House. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Back, top of the 10 o'clock.